From its opening moments, Red Dead 2 already tells you how the game's going to end. America's changing, times are changing, the Van der Linde gang have to decide whether to change with them, or to die upholding their way of life. It seems simple put on paper like that, and we already have a decent idea of how the game's going to end, so why should we care? The reason I care is because of the characters. The question is, how exactly are we made to care about them? Or rather than being told things, we see it. So many shows will just tell you exactly to your face what a character is and does and how we should feel about them. What Red Dead 2 does, it allows us to see these characters for who they truly are. It might point out a few things in certain areas, but for the most part, the game knows to let the player come to their own conclusions rather than holding their hand for them. We know Dutch is a charismatic and caring leader because we see the speeches he gives, how he brings people together and how he helps rescue them and does his best to be an honourable man. He's a bad man, but he's not them.
We're bad men. We ain't them. It's okay. Get on. We'll keep you safe until you figure out what you want to do.
That quote doesn't just apply to Arthur and the O'Driscolls, but that's exactly how we see the gang. And that's exactly how they see themselves. They know they're not saints, but they try their best. They try to keep up appearances, try to live honourably, even though it will end up being futile in the end. As we go through the game, we see their way of life, both the dark underbelly of their more criminal sides, as well as the beauty and the simplicity of their way of life as well. We see them try to make amends, try to help people close to them. It's why we buy into their characters, because we see who they really are. And because we see who they really are, that's why the game's so impactful. It's personal. We know these characters, we see them change, some for the better and some for the worse. We know their capacity for good, so if we see their gradual fall from grace, it hurts all the more, because we know what these characters are capable of. It's what makes Red Dead 2 such a depressing game, watching everything slowly unravel despite everyone's best efforts. Yet, despite all of this, I never really felt that it was a depressing experience. At least not constantly. The contrast of the beauty of the world compared to the greed and darkness of humanity is pretty insane to watch. We can clearly see before us that the world is changing. We're not just told it, but it's there in the landscapes. The Native Americans are holed up in a tiny encampment, whittled down to a fraction of their former selves. In Annesburg, we see a scientist, Malcolm McIntosh, protesting and warning us of what humanity is doing to the new land. And just behind him we can see an oil rig polluting the waters nearby. Beautiful landscapes are suddenly interrupted by ugly drilling rigs, and the sky in St. Denis is a murky, sickly grey. But yet when I think back on my time playing, the majority of the land is still untamed, beautiful and serene. But all of this civilization is spreading. We'll catch up with the gang sooner or later. Humanity is spreading across America. Not the peaceful kind of the native Indians, those who had a respect for the land and an understanding, but men. Greedy men. The kind of man like Leviticus Cornwall, and the kind of man like Dutch van der Linde. Cornwall robs and steals from those who have nothing. Dutch steals from the rich. Except he doesn't. At least not always. At first, when we meet the gang, we see Dutch as a sort of Robin Hood figure, stealing from the rich, providing for the poor. He robs Cornwall's train, the Braithwaites and the Greys, the rich poker players, and at that point it never really felt conflicting, because everyone was united. Things didn't always go to plan, but it felt right for the most part. But we can see Dutch becoming more and more desperate. He starts to rob local banks where everyone keeps their money, post offices, and we start to lose even more and more people. The stakes are rising, and despite Dutch claiming that he hasn't even played his hand yet, in reality he's already played most of his cards a long time ago. The luck is gone, people are dying, and it's time to bow out. But he won't go home. One more gamble, one more game, one more train, one more heist. He's a gambling man, and luck just doesn't seem to be on his side anymore. What we can see here is the greed consuming Dutch, just as it did with Cornwall and so many others. He needs money, and the difference is he's starting to put money above people. The human side we connected to, his love for people, his honor. It's failing. Dutch is changing, and it's not for the best. While no single event really triggered this spiral, it's been happening the entire time, I do think that the death of Hosea is a particularly big part of this. It's not exactly a fork in the road, but this is definitely where we start to see some of the bigger cracks forming in the group. More discontent, more doubt, more questions. In Red Dead Redemption 2, we see that people have the capacity to change other people. Arthur changes his mind. He rescues Sean and Micah despite not wanting to or not being convinced. Mary changes him and shows him that there really is a good man still in him, however small he might be. And this change rubs off on Arthur. He tries to help other people change as well. He tries to forge John into a better man for his wife and for his child. In a lot of ways, I feel like the loss of Hosea was the loss of the old ways and the wisdom that came with them. There was no longer anyone to control Dutch's instincts. Well, at least no one that he'd listen to. And while Dutch tries to hold to the same standards that Hosea set and created, they start to slip. He starts to change, but he can't see that. We can see this through Dutch's speeches, the way they used to hold weight, everyone would crowd around, listen intently. And now he sits outside of his tent, talking to no one in particular. When he first said he'd throw himself into the ground in someone's stead, I believed him. Arthur believed him. But when it came to Beaver Hollow, I didn't. This speech for me really showed Dutch's transformation. He starts it with the same conviction and passion as before. We get a glimpse of the man that's still in there somewhere. But he loses that. A speech meant to rally the people behind him ends with him talking about how they won't catch him, and how if you're by his side, they won't get you either. But it's all lies. He lets John go. He lets Abigail go. He leaves Arthur behind despite every opportunity to help. The world has changed him. Changed him into a man that the old Dutch would have hated. He simply says one thing and then does another. Dutch, the Dutch that we knew, died a long time ago. The Arthur Mary knew? Well, he's still alive. Just barely. Strangely enough, getting tuberculosis may have been the best thing to happen to Arthur Morgan. At least mentally. The diagnosis allows him to stop caring about artificial things like money and power and focus on what really matters instead. People. His mind isn't clouded like before. He can see clearly through Dutch, even more so than before. His letters from Mary might be one of the most heartbreaking things I've read. Not because she believes that there's a chance that Arthur can change, but because she ends up being right. Arthur can change, and does. It's just slightly too late. She is wrong, however. Arthur's world isn't one someone can just escape from. Arthur does it. He manages to escape all the torment, the trials and tribulations. He just doesn't escape with his life. And John? Well, Arthur put it best.
John made it. He's the only one. The rest of us... No. But I tried. In the end, I did.
Arthur becomes the man that Dutch used to be. The beacon of hope, the role model, even if he'd never admit it to himself. He's the honourable man that Dutch personified but never truly was. He's almost content with himself. And Dutch hates that. It's written on his face. He hates Arthur in the end, not just because he no longer listens to him, argues, and as far as he's concerned acts as a traitor, but he hates him because Arthur managed to become the man that Dutch wanted to be. Arthur is someone who stayed true to himself. He never compromised his beliefs, never putting power or money over people. At least not at the end. Arthur Morgan wanted to stand unshaken amidst a crashing world. Because America is changing. Times are changing. And Arthur Morgan has to decide whether to change with them or die upholding their way of life. And he does.